2024, Minneapolis was named the happiest city in the United States. We're ranked second in the country for park access, with 99% of our residents living within a 10-minute walk to a park. We have more Fortune 500 companies per capita than any other metropolitan area in the country, and we're the only American city with a gold ranking according to the Institute for Quality of Life. And those statistics are compelling, but in the 5 years of having this channel, I've never made a video about why I live in the Twin Cities. I could live anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world with what I do, but I choose the Twin Cities. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch. I run the hardest working real estate team in the game. We're called To the Twin Cities, and this channel is all about helping you find a place to call home here in the Twin Cities metro. And relocations is what we do. It's what we do better than anybody else. It's what we spend all of our time focusing on, solving problems for, and honestly, we enjoy it a lot. Very passionate about this place. This is the first video I've made ever on this channel that's even close to, if I had to convince somebody why they should move to Minnesota. I am not ever trying to sell somebody on Minnesota. That's really not where I'm trying to come from. I think Minnesota speaks for itself, and so people come here. But this video is, if somebody's looking for reasons to live in the Twin Cities, to relocate to the Twin Cities, then let me give you some reasons. And if you're interested in working with us, we would absolutely love to help you. You can go to our website, tothetwincities.com. We have a contact form there that you can fill out in about 30 seconds or less, or you can shoot us an email directly to info@tothetwincities.com. But honestly, the website is the easiest route for everybody involved, so we would encourage you to take that route. And I'm very excited for this video. We're just gonna have fun. Then let's talk about the city. Right now we're at Lake of the Isles. It's part of the chain of lakes in Minneapolis. It's part of the Grand Rounds scenic bike route in the Twin Cities. And this is actually the morning that we started shooting the video. But we didn't want to start the video here, but we did want to start the day here, because a morning bike ride, a morning walk around any one of these chain of lakes is truly, truly a treat. The cities, both Minneapolis and St. Paul, are absolutely filled with beautiful natural assets, almost all of which are public facing, almost all of which are pretty readily available to anybody, whether you live in the city or in the suburb. In my opinion, the city is a valuable asset to you and to your lifestyle. And there's a robustness to the metropolitan area. There's a robustness to the cities. First of all, we have two cities, both of which are pretty decently sized, but also not massive, right? But the two cities combined, both Minneapolis and St. Paul, are really pushing up right against 1 million total residents. And there is a completeness to the cities. Not to say that there couldn't be more things, right? There couldn't be some more variety or things like that. But to a lot of the people that we help move here, there's a pretty surprising amount of variety in terms of cultures, right? Cuisines that correlate with those cultures, neighborhood pockets that are sort of beacons for certain cultures, and of course, community events for a huge, wide variety of cultures. There's a robustness when it comes to sports, right? Sports are ever present in Minnesota. We have all of the major teams, albeit haven't won in a long time. We do have them, and people are fans. People are diehard fans of basically all of the teams, And we have had some pretty fun teams in recent years, teams that were very, very fun to watch. But of course, Minnesota Vikings football, Minnesota Timberwolves, men's basketball, Minnesota Lynx, women's basketball. Actually, they are the winningest team in all of Minnesota. Minnesota Wild hockey, Minnesota Twins baseball, Minnesota United is MLS soccer or football, depending on who you are. Of course, there's a ton of college and university level sports, and high school sports are a big deal in Minnesota as well. There's also a fullness to the Twin Cities when it comes to arts, entertainment, and of course, cuisine. There's American, all sorts of American-style cuisines, really great Mexican food, French, Italian, Indian, Japanese, Chinese, Thai, but there are some really interesting cuisines here that can be difficult to find in other places. One place that comes to mind is Kamarchuk's. It's a Polish deli, really close to our office in kind of the northeast Minneapolis area. Really good, worth trying out. Then right down here is a place called Gai Noi. It's a Laotian restaurant, which is incredible. We actually have a few Laotian restaurants. There's also a place called Awamni by the Sous Chef, which is a Native American restaurant in an absolutely beautiful setting in downtown Minneapolis. There's also Porzana, which is an Argentinian steakhouse. Also check out Martina for basically somewhat similar. There's a lot of Hmong cuisine, as there's a sizable Hmong population here. Union Hmong Kitchen is a pretty incredible spot. There's Tibetan and Himalayan food and Ethiopian food, and just a huge variety of food. The list goes on and on and on. As far as arts and entertainment are concerned, first of all, Minneapolis is a music city. It maybe doesn't have the reputation of a Nashville or an Austin or LA or New York, but make no mistake, there's an endless array of genres. There's music 7 nights a week in multiple spots around the city. There are venues from dive bar and house show to, proper arenas and everything in between, and quite literally every genre and subgenre that you can think of could have a place to call home here in the Twin Cities. And Northeast Minneapolis contains what's known as the Arts District, which is a pretty impressive landscape that really contributes toward, the fullness of the arts culture, the arts scene in Minneapolis. It's home to quite literally hundreds of converted warehouse spaces that have been converted into artist spaces. The first shop that this channel was ever shot on, like the first office that we were ever in, was one of those art spaces. And not only do they help give artists, a place to do their thing, which can be difficult to find, by the way, in a lot of other places, they also help to provide a sense of community. Minneapolis is also home to something called Art-A-World, which is the largest open studio tour in the entire country. And it is huge and a very good time, by the way. There's over 1,300 artists at Art-A-World, participating in Art-A-World, and over 70,000 people in attendance. And it's just all of these different buildings that, allow for artist spaces. Just the doors are open, you can walk in, you can buy different things from different artists. It's really cool, and you'll see this level of collaboration among artists, among genres, among vintage sellers and clothing makers, combined with photographers or whatever, right? There's just this level of collaboration that it allows because it's such a big event, and it kind of seems like a shame to waste that opportunity. And as much as I love the city and am a city kid at heart these days, this is just the beginning of what Minnesota has to offer. So let's head out of town and I'll show you some of my favorite places in the state. We're just about a 30-minute drive from where we started the video in Stillwater, Minnesota, which is undeniably one of the crown jewels as far as small towns go in Minnesota, which leads me to my first point, which is all about friction. And what I mean by friction, it's really about a lack of friction in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, that so many other places have. First off, it's just extremely easy to access all of the great things that Minnesota has to offer. For example, from the edge of the Twin Cities Metro to downtown Minneapolis is 30 to 45 minutes, depending on traffic. Don't get me wrong, of course there are tons of places around the country, around the planet, with an undeniable cool factor. But that hype around them, that cool factor, makes it unbearable sometimes to navigate the area and to go experience the things that make it cool. In my opinion, the Twin Cities is the perfect size to be very cool and filled with so much stuff to do and so much variety, but just small enough to where you can actually go access those things and you don't have to make a huge deal out of planning it. If you live in the city proper, either Minneapolis or St. Paul, anywhere in the city is basically going to be 15 minutes away from wherever you are. That accessibility across the city proper is wild, especially compared to so many places. And then to get from the city to the suburbs, or from the suburbs to the city, again, 30 minutes, 45 minutes with traffic, very, very easy to navigate. And then to get outside of the suburbs and to get into the more sparsely populated, beautiful rural areas of Minnesota, there's within 2 hours, within 90 minutes, there's an unbelievable bounty of different places to visit. And that's exactly where we are still going for this video. This next little bit can be a little bit harder to explain to people until you experience it for yourself. But one of my favorite things about living in Minnesota, living in the Twin Cities, is the people. Overall, the people in the Twin Cities and around the Twin Cities are remarkably down to earth. There's a general sense of politeness pretty much across the board. Most people have heard the term Minnesota nice, but personally I think that sort of the passive-aggressive reputation, the negative connotation of Minnesota nice, is just people being polite and not creating confrontation over literally nothing, right? Because honestly, there's so many things that occur on a day-to-day that maybe they're slightly annoying, but they're not worth an argument with a stranger over, I do think that a lot of the sort of social dynamic, the sort of societal experience here does actually fall back on the lack of friction that I explained earlier. I think if you go to major metropolitans where everything is, there's so much friction to get around, there's just this undercurrent of anxiety to the entire population. There was actually a study performed not all that long ago where people would set up cameras on street corners, and based on the pace that people walk, you could tell approximately what the population of the city was. And I would say that the population of both of the Twin Cities are just in that very, very comfortable range. The cities definitely have a bit of excitement. There's, some commotion, some hubbub and things like that throughout the cities, but you will find a slower pace of life around the metro, especially just outside the metro, than I think you'll find in a lot of other more major metropolitan areas. And I would even almost take it a step further and say, once you're outside of the metro, once you're into like a proper rural place within Minnesota, most of that I think of sort of like up north or the southeast or southwest or something like that. But when you get to those places, it's not just Minnesota nice. For one, it is proper Minnesota nice, very, very nice people in those rural areas, but there's almost something more akin to like a southern hospitality, where there's a very friendly, easygoing, people are willing to just strike up a conversation with a stranger, and it's not necessarily seen as like a weird thing to do. And I think my last favorite thing about living in the Twin Cities, living in Minnesota, is probably actually truly my favorite thing, and maybe one of the most underrated things about Minnesota, which is the natural beauty of the state. Right now I'm at Palisade Head, which is truly one of my favorite places on the North Shore of Lake Superior. By the way, it's not even really a freshwater lake. It's a freshwater inland sea. It's massive. And this sort of enormity of this area of Minnesota is something that I have kind of a long, personal history with. I really love this place. I've probably been up here hundreds, quite literally many hundreds of times. Minnesota is actually very dense with beautiful natural landscapes from, of course, land of 10,000 lakes. We have more water than I think literally anywhere. And you can't drive 5 minutes without seeing some kind of a lake or a pond. And then, of course, you have places like this where you can't even see across the lake, right? Because it's just so huge. There are many different facets to what people consider up north. There's sort of the northwest side by, say, Alexandria, or you could go further north to the likes of Brainerd, Bemidji, things up there. Then, of course, there's more of the central up north, like the Iron Range, which has a lot of variety of things to do there. And then if you go to the very peak, the very northern tip of Minnesota, you have the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, BWCA, also Voyager National Park, which is truly pristine, untouched wilderness that I've been to a lot of national parks. That level of seclusion is very difficult to come by, is very, very unique in the BWCA. And then again, Lake Superior, that's my true up north. That's when I think of going up north. It's places like this and sort of the enormity of the likes of Palisade Head. And another thing that I've really grown to love, grown to appreciate as I've gotten older, as I've grown up here, is the Four Seasons. We don't just kind of get 4 seasons. We get true 4 seasons. We get all of them in what I think is truly like their best versions. I think our winters are a small price to pay for how beautiful every other month of the year is. And honestly, as an adult, I've now come to love and embrace winter and appreciate the variety. As a child, it was some of my most fond memories are in the winter, playing in the snow, being a kid in the snow. One little thing that I think about a lot is how we have a summer break in the summer in Minnesota, which is one of the best times to be a kid. It's incredible. I think about people in hotter climates whose summer breaks are in some of the warmest, most uncomfortable months of the year, and that sounds like a total pain in the butt to me. If winter feels like this unbearable chore to you, then for one, I think you will eventually acclimate to it. If you can kind of change the framing of how you look at Minnesota's climate and realize that it is extremely robust and varied, and it is why we have places like this. The place that we exist on the globe is why Lake Superior exists. It's why we have 10,000 lakes. It's why there's just what seems like endless freshwater all over the state. And not only that, but you will learn to appreciate spring. When spring comes around, the first 40-degree day is such a gift, and you're so happy to have it. 40 degrees in the Southwest is a punishment, right? It's like the coldest days y'all get. 40 degrees in the spring coming out of winter is truly, truly a pleasure. And then, of course, the fall, the autumn. To me, it's the best time of the year to be a Minnesotan, to be in Minnesota. Days like today, I don't know, it's probably 55 degrees, sunny, a very nice wind. This literally cannot be beat, in my opinion. But thank you for watching, y'all. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.